This is a handout titled Smarter Than the Average Bear, and what we're going to end up doing is having to find the average of some numbers that are given to us. So let's take a look at a couple different problems. Letter C on the handout is an interesting one because we have the number 0. Well, this is one of the numbers, so we're going to end up having to use that when we're trying to find the average. So when we look at the directions, it says find the average of each group of numbers. Remember to find the sum first, and that's what you do to find the average, is you have to add up all of the numbers. So the average is what we get when we sum all the numbers and then divide by the number of numbers that we are adding. And that's what they have here, to then divide by the number of addends. And so addends are number of numbers. So number of numbers is what we're looking for there. So we go ahead and add this stuff together. You add up all the ones places to start with. So I have 1 plus 3, so this makes 4 here. So this is 5, and then 8 would be 13. And so I'll put a 3 here for the 13 in the ones place. I bring a number up into the tens place and count up those numbers in the tens place. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then plus 4 makes 93. So 93 is what I get when I add up all of the numbers. So the average is the number that's kind of in between all these numbers. Well, that's what we get when we go ahead now and divide by the number of numbers. So we count up the numbers. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers. So I am going to take this number 93 and I'm going to divide it by 5. So the way I do that is I start with 5 into 9 goes just one time. I do the multiplication. 5 times 1 makes 5. Subtract, and I end up with 4 left over. Well, I bring down this 3, and then I've got another division problem. I now have to do 5 into 43. Well, it goes 8 times. And 8 times 5 makes 40. And then I do some subtraction. So when I go ahead and do that subtraction, I'm left with 3. Now we got a choice. We can either change this to a decimal, or we can write it as a mixed number. I'm going to go ahead and treat this as a decimal this time, but I will also write the mixed number form for you in just a moment. So if I do change this to a decimal point gets added and then brought straight up. I bring down this 3, or this 0, and think of 5 into 30. And 5 goes into 30, goes in there 6 times, because 5 times 6 does make 30. Do the subtraction, we get 0 left over. So now we're done with our answers. Our answer is, the average is 18 and 6/10. That's also the same thing as if you said 18. Now we had a remainder of 3. So this is the number that was left over prior to adding that extra number at the end, that placeholder of 0. So we could write it as 18 and 3 over 5, because 5 is what we were dividing by. So either answer would mean the same thing. So what this means is 18.6 is the average of these numbers. And so it's kind of in the middle of all of these numbers. If you compare all the numbers, so you have all the way from 0 to 48. So we've got quite a range there. The next problem, a little bit different because the numbers are just kind of bigger, I guess. So we have 9 plus 5. So when the numbers are really big like this, sometimes we need to group them together. See, I would probably combine this 4 and 6 first. See, that 4 and 6, those add to make 10. And then I'd kind of combine some other numbers, maybe like this 9 and 9, these two numbers, and that makes 18. See, I could add that stuff up. Makes 28 now. And now I've got the 5 and this 3, so that just makes 8. And that all adds to make a 16, carry a 1, that makes 36. So now, at least I know that 6 goes in the ones place, and I need to carry a 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and move over to the tens place, start adding those numbers up. So I'm going to start with this 3 and this 7 first. Those 3 and the 7 makes 10. So I'll start with adding those two numbers, and then I'll count up some others. If I can make 10 again, that'd be great. See, 2 plus 1 plus 7. See, 2 plus 1 makes 3, plus 7 makes another 10. See, I like to group things together to make tens, because they're easy to add. 2 and 5 make 7. So I need to add 10, 10, and 7 up, which makes 27. So 7's the number that goes here. And I have to carry now a 2. So it's the same sort of thing. I'm going to go ahead and add up those numbers. Let's go ahead and start with the 2 and the 5. Okay, that makes 5. So I've got 5. And 2 more makes 7. This makes 8. This makes 9. This makes 10 and 11. So 11 is that final number. So the numbers were a little smaller here, so I was able to count them up in my head as I went. I just counted them up. 2, 3 is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, we got our number. It's 1,176. So let's start with that number there. And we'll go ahead and we're dividing by the number of numbers. So let's count them up. We got one number, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers. So I counted 6 numbers. Those are the number of addends. And so number of numbers is what that means. And so now we're dividing 6 into 11. See, 6 can't go into 1, so I need to get to the next number. So my first number is going to be right above this 1 here. So 6 times 2 makes 12. Well, that'd be too big, so we got to go with 1 as the first number. And so we go ahead and do that multiplication. 6 times 1 makes 6, and we now have some subtraction to do. I do that subtraction, I'm left with 5. So I bring down this 7. All right, so now we need to think of 6 into 57. And so, well, 6 times 9 is 54. That's smaller than 57, so we'll try that. 54. Do some subtraction, and I'm left with 3. All right, so now I got to bring down the next number. I got to bring down this 6 all the way straight here. And so that's why oftentimes your teacher will have you use graph paper when you're first learning how to divide, so you get those numbers all lined up. Because graph paper has vertical lines and horizontal lines. Well, we need another number. 6 into 36. That goes 6 times. Yeah, 6 times 6 makes 36. Hey, that made a remainder of 0. No extra decimal point here. We have 196 as our average. So that's the average number in between all these numbers. So averages are counting up all the numbers, finding, and then from there dividing by the number of numbers. And so that's the average number. So if you said that 196 was one of the numbers, that would be right kind of in the middle between all of these values. Is what that represents. Well, those are a couple of the problems that you'll see on tonight's homework. You can also get a copy of this page from the same tutorials page.